Okay. So, so rents. So we've got multifamily is the gold and single family is the blue. I don't see Robert on here yet, so I'm just going to kind of start. They've got the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 and 4. Average is usually 3 or 4 bedroom in this area, unless you're, in Del Webb area or something that has, mostly retired active senior living. So I always like to look at these. But if you're renting units that have, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, obviously you want to look at those as well. Any comments on the rent report on what's going on with the rents? How's everyone doing getting rent? Anybody? Anybody at all? I'm not looking at the chat, so you guys need to unmute yourself.
This is Ann.
Hi, Ann. How's everything going with your situation?
Yeah, so our rental properties are all in St. Louis, and we have 25 doors. Only one was not paying rent, and we successfully evicted him. And everyone else is paying. And as far as I know, because we do have a property manager, that they've not asked for assistance. But a lot of them work in healthcare too.
That's helpful. Anyone else have an experience with rents? You can choose to unmute yourself and just speak out loud. Anyone? Okay. So we're still seeing a trend of an upward trend, right, of the rents. We're in December, so things kind of start to stale out. But it looks like the rents are still creeping up, especially for 4 bedrooms. But all for 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms, right? We're seeing those go up. The median rent. And Robert, if you're on, please chime in. Go ahead and unmute yourself and chime in. So for the median rents for, let's say, a single family, we'll say multifamily, 2 bedroom, $1,258. Section 8, 1071, average square feet about 975. I honestly think that's low, but I mean, I don't know. Okay, Robert's he's not in our group right now, is what we're being told. So it's on us. We get to take it apart. He's got the gross yield rents. Rental trend summary over 3 months and 12 months, because really 1 month isn't a trend in my opinion. Well, not just my opinion, that's reality. A trend has to be at least 3 months. But City of Reno is what I'm looking at. So we've got the zip code 89503. I don't know why he pulls that one. I'm sure he has to pull some zip code. But the City of Reno, 3-month change, it's down $9, not anything astronomical, but within the last 12 months, same time last year was $29 higher now than it was same time last year in December. County of Washoe, and then the state of Nevada. So over the last 12 months, we're still seeing an increase from same time last year. A dip is not unusual around this time of year because it gets, we get into winter time, so things kind of change that way. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. We probably have the smallest group we've ever had. It is December, however, and that's not unusual, especially since we're forced to do it Zoom and not live. Ken usually is a huge draw. And so I'm certain that we'll have others come in sporadically. And so just got a message from my assistant. Ken, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello, everyone. For those of you that we haven't met before, for business, I'm the corporate broker for Keller Williams Group 1 in Reno. I've been in the real estate business for 26 years now. Before that, I was involved in startups for cell phone systems across the country and in France. involved in two-way radio. I was a police officer a long time ago in 2000 or in 1967 to 72 or so, police and fire. So I've done a variety of things. I lived in Reno 4 times. They take the wanted posters down periodically when I was able to come back. And been here, been a homeowner many, many times. Before I got into real estate, seemed like I got transferred every couple of years. And I thought I got promoted. My wife said I couldn't hold a job. So there's a different way of looking at these things, unfortunately. But anyway, I have 26 years experience at being 50. My daughter is not pleased with me saying that because she's convinced that makes her only 3 years old when she was born. So I'm not going to say that anymore. But anyway, I am happy to be here. And what I've done in the past 15 years at least is keep track of the market reports that we do for the greater Reno-Sparks 5-county area around Reno in real estate. I was doing them myself, and this time what you're going to see is a presentation that when I was president of the association, we hired a professional to do these reports, and I supplement them. And in this case, we're going to see some very interesting charts and other things that were produced by Domus Analytics. They are a national company based right here and are helping people look at the market results all over the country. So I'll try to share some ideas with you on price and trends and see what we can come up with. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you, Ken.
Should we get started, or are you ready?
We are ready. Let's get started.
Okay. Just
one quick question for you, Ken. How do you want to handle questions? Do you want them to wait to the end, or do you want them to just unmute and ask you?
I think if we can get everyone just to unmute and ask, it's fine with me. This is not something I'm concerned about, having a bunch of chatter, I don't think, that interrupts. I would ask you to mute when you're not doing that so that any background noise in your house or whatever, doesn't interfere with somebody else's information. I did, if you'll all look down at the bottom of your screen probably, or maybe the top, you'll see the chat. And those of you that are familiar with Zoom can look at it, because what I did was download a copy of this presentation tonight in a PDF that you can all take home with you. So I would recommend that even right now that you all go to chat and then right click on that market report PDF symbol and download it to your own computer. Those of you that are on phones might be a little more awkward. And if you need it, what we can do is
we can send it to him, Ken, after.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you have a record of who's here in any way, that way we can just send it to those of you that can't download it easily. But it's there right now. And as far as that goes, I'm ready to go. So I will, let's see, you're sharing your screen right now, I think. So if you'll stop sharing, I'll go ahead and share mine, and then we'll work on this.
Okay, go for it, Ken. Go ahead and share your
Now,
screen.
as far as time goes, I have a commitment in a while, so I'll be on for anywhere from a half an hour to 40 minutes. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
And if it's longer than that a little bit, that will work too. If we got questions, and I'll try to do that too.
Awesome, Ken.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share a screen with you, and I'd like to just make sure that everyone can see it. Here it comes. So at this point, everyone should be seeing a big Reno-Sparks Area 100. Can somebody just give me a thumbs up or something that they can see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. That means everybody can see it, I would imagine.
Yes.
let me work on getting this thing as a slideshow. And we'll do it from the beginning. And go away. Something just came up I hadn't seen before, so I'll get rid of that. I'm not sure how to get rid of that. Let's try. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to start with is a kind of a 30,000 foot view of the greater Reno-Sparks market. And what I'm going to be doing is talking, this particular report is for single family homes only. And the reason for that, and I can give you some information about condos and some other things too. And I don't have any commercial stuff in here per se. But what I've noticed is whenever we mix the market, then the numbers get all screwed up because just like trying to do an average of all the sales going on in Palomino Valley here, you might try to average 2 sales or 3 sometimes, or 1, and the numbers get all messed up. And if you start mixing unlike things together, then the numbers don't mean anything. So this is strictly single family stick-built homes. And they're in the Reno-Sparks area, which is basically Washoe County without incline. If you think of the greater Reno-Sparks area going up as far as Palomino Valley and then going down into Washoe Valley, that's where we're talking. And that'll give you a pretty good idea. There are some special things that we can do, and Ginger has access to reports that can help you find properties in Burnley or in Fallon or in Yerington or other places, if that's where your interest is, but we'll focus here. So the first slide is a pretty steep climbing thing, and it goes from 2015 in January, basically all the way up to just 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about the end of November. The interesting thing is that this is a period of time that takes us backwards pretty close to the bottom of our market. The market hit its previous peak. Those of you that were around in 2003, 4, 5 saw the market go crazy. We had funky purchasing power back then with loans where all you had to have was the ability to either breathe on the piece of paper, or perhaps have a thumbprint or something. You didn't need any assets. You could buy property and get crazy in those days. We peaked out in January of 2006 with a $365,000 median home price for single family residences like the ones I'm showing here. And that median price means that half the prices for sales in that month were higher than that and half were lower. So it just picks a middle point. It doesn't necessarily mean when the median changes, technically, it doesn't mean that any house went up in value, but it just means where the sales are concentrated. This is a lot better, though, than the average sale price, but we'll have some information about that too, probably. But the average can be changed by some $1 million sales that just influence everything. So this is a much more reliable way to look at what the market's really doing. And if you look at the screen that you're looking at, you've got, I overpainted a red symbol there. We went flat, pretty much flat for those months. And what we've got is a very nominal change from the previous month, but you can see that we've gone up a lot during the last months of this year, and then going back into the period of time prior. Looking at the next slide, here's a summary of what's going on. Now, this is the median sold price based on this particular sample. We're up 13%, 13.4% from November last year, and technically down $2,000 roughly, or actually $1,300 in the sold price from October. Excuse me. So one of the things to look at here, what I'm really focused on right now is some of the volume numbers and some of the things that to me are indicating trends. 550 units sold in the month of November. That's up 20%, 21% roughly from last year in November, and then down 12%, from October, which is not a surprise in the fact that we almost always slow down during the winter here. Winter technically hasn't started, but we know that winter starts closer to Thanksgiving and even Halloween sometimes. The thing that is a number that you don't hear in most market studies is the next number on that screen, which is days to contract. And that's how long did it take on average to get an offer accepted on a home for sale in the multiple listing service. And so what we see is 34 days to contract. Now, to give you a comparison, and we'll go into more detail, but to give you a comparison, the number that we see there in other times in the last several years might have been 56 number of days to contract, 85 days to contract, nothing more than that in most cases. And if you look backwards into some of the times when the market was really in trouble, we had situations there where the days to contract were really long. The other thing that's affecting us right now, and those of you that have been out shopping for a home or a property, or just looking at the market numbers, the active inventory at the time of this particular thing, which was, I think, about a week, it was the 8th, I think it was about a week into December, we had adjusted everything, and this is kind of the final numbers, but the active inventory was 356 homes on the market at any price in the greater Reno-Sparks market. That's the Washoe area without incline. I checked it this morning, there were 237 homes on the market at any price. Now, to give you a thought about that, last year at this time, we had over 1,000 homes on the market. And that isn't a big number. We've had 2,000 or 3,000 on the market in the past. So we're looking at something that those of you that have been around this market for a couple of years, we've had pretty low, relatively low inventory, especially in the summertime, for quite a long time. The market number that's on there next is $253 per square foot. I don't pay attention to that one really at all. If you're not comparing one-story homes with one-story homes in the same neighborhood, approximately the same plus or minus 200 or 300 square feet, I think that number is nothing more than just a average that you can use to kind of keep track of something, but don't take it as the square footage price of any given house. It's just a way to track the movement of that number. And we're up 14%, from last year at this time, and up 1.5% from last month. But to actually use that number to try to determine anything about an individual home, this isn't what this report is all about. This is about market trends and not about individual homes. Basically, most of you that have tried to buy a house or tried to acquire a property in the last months and all this year, really, doing a lowball offer and hoping someone will take your price hasn't worked very well for very many people. I know that most of the homes in the under 500,000, especially under 400,000, and really especially under $300,000 price range, have had multiple offers in one day. I checked a couple of days ago, and the number of homes under 300,000 that were available were 8. And a few weeks earlier, it was around 14. So that startup market, the first-time buyer market, the kind of affordable home that we hear about, is really a tough one to work on. When you look at the percent of ask price received. In the old days, you got a pretty high number from the list price of a home at the time that you finally got an offer. But in the old days, when you were on the market for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, you might have adjusted the price down several times. And so that number still stayed pretty high. This is showing the percent of ask price received with minutes on the market. I'm kidding a little, but just the idea that we're on the market very short times. And I've got details about that too. The absorption rate is the months of inventory. This is a common number that is used. It's similar to trying to figure out, you know, how much inventory a store has. For example, if we were going to stop buying any more products for our supermarket, how long would it take for us to clean out the store? That's not a good example because there's too many little products there, but think of it more like furniture maybe, or cars. The idea is, in this case, if we stopped having any more new homes come, any more homes come on the market, instead of having 6 months of inventory to clear out the store here in the greater Reno-Sparks area, which would be considered a balanced market, we have 6/10 of a month. Back in 2008, we had 18 months of inventory. So you can get an idea of how big this range has been over the last 12 years or 13 years or so. So looking at this, you're seeing some of the numbers for the big part of the market. And that's an interesting challenge all the way around. Any questions or thoughts so far? Let's make this interactive if you want to. Okay.
I have a thought.
Okay, go. Who am I talking to?
My name is Chris Tolliver.
All right.
I'm a soon-to-be resident of the Reno area. Right now, I'm living and talking from Manhattan in New York City.
Okay.
Everything you're telling me is exciting in terms of, like, you know, this is my future, sort of my second half of me and my family's life to move out there, but also super frightening. My wife, it's like we're buying in downtown San Francisco 5 years ago.
Okay, and I understand that one. There's two ways to think about this. This group in this meeting, you know, is certainly the investor group from what people are generally here for, or at least thinking about becoming one if you aren't already. I know some of you, you know, I've met quite a few before that have been investors for a long time. I read something and I've taken it to heart pretty much. I've tried really hard not to consider the home that I live in as an investment. It's kind of like the car that you drive to work every day. If you define an investment, it's something you could buy or sell without changing your daily life. Whereas if you consider your home as an investment, if you sold it to reap the profit, you'd be homeless and perhaps, you know, living in your car. That's the difference between a true investment and how we look at our basic life. However, it's inevitable that we look at our home that we live in as an investment too, because most of us in a period of time have either you know, moved up or moved down. We've downsized or we've upsized. We've had to, you know, change locations. You're moving from New York. I mean, that's a big move. I made a whole lot of moves in the years prior to 1995. When I got into real estate here, I moved one more time. But prior to that time, I moved every couple of years, and you had to be very careful to even try to make a profit after keeping the house only 2 or 3 years. I think, though, that one of the things that we have going on right now is we have population increase, we have business increase, and we have a big shortage of homes. The builders are building, and their new homes are going. But back in 2003, 4 into 5, we had 200 to 300 new homes a month coming on the market and being, you know, added to our sold inventory. And that isn't what's happening now. So we're in a resale market, although the new homes are hot and they're taking waiting lists for the homes. They're only building 5 or 10 at a time instead of a whole big neighborhood. So there are some differences, you know, with how that's working. So I don't know what to tell you about, you know, the fear issue, which I believe, you know, as far as like San Francisco, my son and his family live in San Francisco, and the prices there are crazy when it compares to here. But at the same time, we're not that far off from where we were, you know, a year ago. And we're in a position where the supply demand can make this go a lot crazier if we let it. So I still think it's not a bad time to buy, except if you're trying to do, you know, something where you are going to be in debt for everything and maybe have to sell it in a year or two. That could be a problem if the market changes. But everything I see right now, we're not going to be that thin, you know, given the next year or two at least. And beyond that, we're going to be short of things for a long time, I think, because this valley is such that the closest you can come to these things is to move out to Fernley, move out to Lovelock, you know, move out to not Lovelock, but move out all the way out, you know, into some of the outer counties and commute a long ways. And that depends on, of course, on what people do for work and all that.
Ken, can I ask a question? This is Emma.
Yeah.
The people that are buying, is it kind of out of necessity, just they buy what's available and it's not kind of their dream home?
You know, that's an interesting question, because with interest rates as low as they are, you know, people are able to buy. Let's face it, people are truly qualified to buy homes and are not stretching to where they're going to be hurting every month to make the payment. So it's really a hard market for first-time buyers. There's no question about that. But the people that are, you know, moving up or moving across some way, I think that, you know, they're buying lots of times a newer home than they were. And with the neighborhoods the way they are and where they're positioned, I think they have more choices. And our commute is better too in some ways, although it's crowded. Hard to tell. They are, you know, having to look at the price range they're in.
Right.
But we'll see what we got. Let's look at some more slides here, and then we can get back and see if we've covered any of that, okay? So let's look at November and the number of closed sales. And this is looking at 2020 and adjusting the numbers a little bit. 550, the prior period in October was 625. And, you know, looking at that, we're down a little bit, but that's kind of normal for this time of year, but we're up 20% from last year. And we were at 455 last year. So our market, you know, has really, in spite of COVID, we have really, you know, changed. And here's one of the breakdowns. What I'm going to be showing you is for each of those graphs that show trend, now here's the detail behind it. So this is looking at the number of closed sales in the 300 to 399 price, 1,000 price range, for example. And up in the millions, we had about 17 or 18 in the 1.5 million plus range, and over 30 in the 750 to 999 and so on. So these are interesting numbers and details that you'll see on the package that I uploaded to chat. Has anybody found that in chat and able to download it okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I was hoping that would be easy. Looking at this a little bit more, we're looking now at days to contract. That's the velocity of the market. And looking at some of those numbers in any given year, for the most part, we have in the wintertime, January timeframe, 70 plus days to market. As you can see, these three highest peaks here. And you can see right now we're in the 30s, and have been for a while. Other years, though, during this same time of the year, we were much higher. And so you look at some of these numbers and it's quite a bit different. This market is really responding to the inventory situation, that's for sure. Looking at that from a point of view of price range, here we are. Even the $1 million, $1.5 million group and up are just a little over 100 days to contract on average. And that number is often 200 days or more in more balanced markets. So I'm seeing multiple offers for homes that are in the pretty high price ranges. There's always one, and it's over there in that 100,000 to 199 on the extreme left. And that one is always a home that you'd have to pay somebody to buy. It's been on the market sometimes for a long time. In this case, the days to contract on that one, it was around 185 or so. And you can imagine that that one, instead of being a fixer-upper, is probably a dozer. That's my new category. So it's something that not very many people wanted, I'm sure. Looking at the next group, absorption rate, this is that 0.6 of a market thing. But you can see that we haven't been a balanced market in this whole series of slides. If you look at 2015 in January on the left-hand side of this particular chart, and you look across, we've never been higher than that 3.5 to 3.3 range in this whole period of time, which is 5 years. And recently we've been real fast. So this is using up our market real quickly, and that is a scary thing. But I think that we'll see after the first of the year, when we start having people more confident in some of their own futures, I think that we'll see that people are not going to be quite as afraid to put them on the market. One of the things I've noticed is that the sellers out there that are thinking about sellers are scared of being homeless. They're in a position where if they were to put it on the market, instead of saying, there's lots of people that would put in their offer, I have to sell my house in order to buy your house. That's common. We have to sell an asset to buy an asset. It happens all the time with 1031s and so on. But in this case, people are wanting to say, yes, I want your offer, but I need to find a house to replace it with before I'll accept your offer or go into the closing range. So this is a difference in how fragile the market is right now, because people are afraid of being homeless if they go ahead and sell. And there aren't very many rentals. That's for sure out there. And especially families generally who are selling a single family home like we're talking about here can't move into a condo or an apartment very easy if they have the same family size, because they need room for stuff. And I think most of you would agree that most of us have too much stuff in our houses. That commercial on TV where the person is helping somebody get ready and they're taking pillows off a couch that's so full of pillows you can't even sit on it is a good example. And that's kind of what happens with that. If you look at that absorption rate by price range, you find that, we've only got 3.5 months or a little under that for even the $1.5 million range. And down here in the quote affordable range for some people, 2 to 300,000, 300 to 4, and 400 to 5, and then the next group is 5 to 6, and then it jumps into the 250 spread. But you see that the days to contract the months of inventory are very low, and it's going to change, but it's winter time on top of that. Looking at active inventory, this is what I was talking about before. We had 1,600 plus 1,700 homes for sale back in 2016. And as recently, as 2019, we had 1,500 or so. And normal for us has generally been, in the 1,000 range and up, not the 1,000 range and below, with that exception right here in the 2008 range, or 2017 range, I'm sorry. But now we are down there. And looking at the most recent thing I saw this morning, 237 homes at any price is really, that's really scary as far as volume of market. I think it will change after the holidays. Active inventory. I think we had 2 slides of, no, okay, I got these backwards, that's why. So active inventory, 356 homes. It's lower than that now, but you can see how low this was. And looking at it with the active inventory, you can see the days to number, the quantities, like 50 homes roughly in the 400 to 500 range, and almost 70 homes in the 300 to 400 range, and 10 or 12 homes in that 200 to 300 range, and most of those are at the right below 300. So these are the quantities in the price ranges, and this is what you'll have to look at when you print that copy that I sent, and you can look at it on your own. Something to refer to at least and kind of get a feel for it. Let's see, we are talking here about distressed units. If you look at what was going on back in 2015, we were recovering, of course, from all the short sales and foreclosures that we used to have. And then that dropped, and then we started down. As you can see now, 1 or 2% of our market is what you would call distressed. A few foreclosures and a few even less short sales, something that some of you, if you've only been in the market now for a few years, probably won't even know what we're talking about. But basically there was a time not that long ago where 1/3 of all of our inventory was being sold as foreclosure, another 1/3 was short sales, and only 1/3 of it were normal sales by people that were not upside down on their mortgages and stuff like that. So that's how crazy that's been. And as you can see, the percent of distressed sales are in a kind of a strange place, but maybe not, because they're in that low end. And even that percentage is still very low by comparison to what we used to have. Looking at this from the point of view of new listings, this is filling the pipeline. And new listings, and if you look at this time of year, it's not that unusual to have new listings be in close to where we are right now. We've had numbers lower than 375 new listings in the month of November quite a few times, or in at least around January, let's say, over these years, looking across this whole slide. But my concern, of course, is that our sales are pretty strong, and so we're taking things out of the market, as fast as we're putting them in and then some, and we don't have the backlog of having 1,000 that were already there that we added 375 to and then sold 500 of them. That's the mix that we're looking at now. That's kind of scary all the way around. We'll have to see where it goes. But what it shows is that new listings are still focused, and no big surprise, in the $300,000 to $400,000 range and the $400,000 to $500,000 range. But these numbers are not hundreds plus, they're barely getting up to 100 in these two categories. So that's what we're looking at. Any thoughts or questions so far?
Do those trends, do they extend into the multifamily space, or do you know?
These are all single family, but do the trends do that? The answer is pretty much yes, to some extent. The sample size is small enough that I don't use them for this kind of thing, just because it's kind of like trying to average 3 things. It isn't statistically of very much value. But what we can do is certainly look into that a little bit. The only other problem is that many of the multifamily things are traditionally not on the MLS if they're bigger than a four, like a fourplex or something, just because the individuals who can not only afford them, but look for those kind of things and the management requirements after you get one, are often looking in some of the commercial, website type things to get the numbers. We can give it a try though, and next time that we do this kind of thing, or maybe Ginger can, we can put something together even for one of your next meetings, even if I'm not there. Okay, so something that can be a handout perhaps. Ginger and I can work together with almost anything of this type, and even though she has no experience and doesn't know what she's doing. Oh, wait a minute, she wasn't supposed to hear that. Sorry.
I thought I was napping or took a siesta. So yeah, we can definitely do that. And I have a question for you on that same note. Could that be why I know the commercial divisions typically put out quarterly reports on commercial size multifamily homes? Do you think that's why?
Yeah, I think so, because it's just like when I try to do numbers for Yerington or for that, I just drove through there last weekend, and I was impressed with just some of the things that were going on that I hadn't seen in a while. But at the same time, the numbers are kind of small to do trends with. And unfortunately, when you're looking at this kind of thing, we're talking about trying to have numbers big enough to have a trend that you can actually kind of count on. And we know that with small numbers, all it would take is like $1 million sale that popped into a neighborhood that was at the high end of that neighborhood would change the numbers for a neighborhood. And so neighborhood by neighborhood, it's hard to do these kind of trends. That's why we do them generally by individual property and look at them with comparables for individual properties. So I know, all kidding aside, Ginger's good at that, so I know about that. The new contracts is a new area that I haven't reported on before, but these are the new accepted offers for that given month. And again, what we saw, because inventory is down, we saw a decline in actual accepted contracts, partly because we're going into winter, but partly too, looking at the same period a year ago, it's pretty similar. So I think what we're seeing in the new contracts is a little more time of year driven, because this series of chart pyramids here have been pretty consistent over this period of time from 2015 to 16 to 17. Then 18 was a weird year, and 19 became part of a year that was kind of slowing down as we approached the beginning of our COVID thing. And actually the market has picked up quite a bit since then. If you look at these numbers, this new contract peak that we're in right now is all 2020, and it's basically from April on. So we've weathered this COVID thing with a pretty strong period of new contracts. Now, looking at new contracts by price range is another possibility here. And looking at that, we've got, again, focused in these lower two or three price ranges, but there's almost no inventory in 200 to 300. So that one is very low because of inventory for sure. And then the ones up here in the higher price range are traditionally lower anyway, just because of the affordability. And right now, inventory in the upper end of the market is not that different from what it's been in previous years compared to the price range in the 300 to 400 range and so on. So we're seeing quite a bit of activity though in the upper ranges. And one of the things, of course, that's happened is we are getting Californians abandoning California. It's been in the news, and it's been, you know, something we talk about and hear about. But we have had quite a bit of just local information that you get word of mouth from our peers out there in the professional part of the real estate market. They're saying, you know, that some of these people coming into town are offering 10 or 20,000 over on a $400,000 house that's already priced, you know, very higher in the range, and they're willing to pay quite a bit of cash over just to get the house, and they've got the money to do it. And the truth is, there's no sin in paying too much for something as long as you know you are. All of us have paid when we were in a tourist place, for example, have paid a lot of money for a meal or for a certain, you know, thing just because we wanted it. And we wouldn't have done that when we were home. So shoppers are different. And when they're coming in from out of state and are looking at our prices and what we get for the money, they're pretty happy. And I think that's, you know, that's a piece of what we're doing. This is an interesting one that I've never used before, but median original list price. This is the original list price of all this. And when you look at the November period of the original list price, the average was 425 and 460. It's considerably lower than the sales that are going on. So it's consistent though with the fact that most of the homes coming on are in those two price ranges below, or that one and the one below, and you're looking at those numbers influencing this, and that's where an averaging effect still works even in this median thing, because it's still something that is a median of average prices to some extent. Same period last year was 399,000, and October was 460,000, and then 425 in November. The other possibility too is that many people with higher priced homes are not bothering to go on the market right now because they don't have to sell. And that, you know, that is one of the things that we can consider. So one of my final thoughts is from our point of view as real estate professionals in the business of helping people buy and sell homes and other properties, we are still trying to help. And I can tell you right now that the people and the staff in our company, for example, and our competitors too, they're out there, quite a few of them are out there working hard, and I know that they're opportunities to help people is still there, and we just have to work harder at making it work. So that's what I've got for tonight. Any thoughts, any questions, any follow-ups?
I have a quick question about, you mentioned the people moving from California.
Yeah.
Are you seeing people moving from California that have jobs there, or are they moving and working remotely, or are they acquiring second homes?
Yes.
I concur.
We're seeing quite a bit. We're seeing a lot of people that have found an opportunity, I think, to sell their property, for a profit, a big profit in California, and downsize and maybe retire or maybe do things. But I think you hit on something else, and that is the ability to work virtually. The potential for that, I think, is something that we're going to be seeing as part of our life and the way life goes during the next years. And I don't think we'll ever go back, frankly, as personal opinion, but I've also heard it, of course, a lot on other media, that companies are looking for ways to save money. They're looking for ways to change. And once they have changed to virtual, many of them said, whoa, this is as good or better than it was before. It's way cheaper. We don't have to have this big office and all that stuff. And it goes on from there. And lots of jobs can be measured so that people can still have the ability to fulfill the type of work they do from, you know, home or from another place. And so I think we're going to see some of that change. And I suspect that there will be some interesting challenges in filling some of the huge office buildings in some of the bigger cities around the country just because of that. So I've interrupted your naps up to this point, and I'll stop sharing my screen. I hope this has been useful for something. And the ones I got a question here on chat. Is there any way to see where those properties in distress are located? Absolutely. Give Ginger a call or a text and let her know. And this one is from Isabel to everyone, so she's not hiding anything, but we can look where, we can certainly find out where those distressed properties are now. Having said that, first of all, there are very few of them. And the ones that I have seen are distressed only because of the owner's situation, not because of the deed holder or the person that's controlling the sale. So for example, the foreclosures are situations where the company that's now selling it, or the group that's now in charge of that, I haven't seen them be as big a bargains as they were before, and the overbidding is very interesting, but it's still worth chasing. I would get a hold of your real estate agent, and like I said, Ginger can take care of this. We can find those properties as to exactly where they are, and then look into them deeper, you know, from there. Isabel, does that help you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, because that's what this is all about, is trying to share some help. Okay, well, let's see. I didn't see any other questions in the chat either.
And I had
Yeah.
a question for you.
Go.
And I mean, I know it's probably a question that you get a lot, but you know, based on the trends that you see on all the reports that you shared with us and where we're going, what have you heard, and what's your thought on what's going to happen in 2021 in the local market?
Okay. I was listening to one of my favorite programs on the radio at between part of 5 and 6 tonight even. And some people that have been right an awful lot of time think that we are going to still see, for example, interest rates stay low for 2 or 3 years, possibly, at least, and even then not go up so much. So I think that is going to be something where people are, as they come out of their fear of COVID, they're going to be able to take advantage of the interest rates and the fact that they've still got a job and still looking at things, and buy the house they really wanted, but maybe were concerned about buying right now. That's part of it. The other part of it, I think, is going to be that I think that California is going to have a continuing exodus, which will make competition for homes tougher in some ways. But when you look at the homes and the properties, and I know this particular report, you know, is single family homes, and that's not your main look for most of the investors, except someone, you know, buying a first one maybe. But as we get into looking at the multi-unit properties of different kinds, I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in those. And as we get into some of the inventory situations with that either changing, we don't have a lot of smaller projects going on in town, but most of you have seen some huge ones. You look at Park Lane Mall area, that used to be Park Lane Mall, I mean, that's got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of units there. You look down at what's going on if you take the exit to go up Mount Rose Highway from 395 south or north and make that turn. There's a ton of apartments in there, and these are big, big complexes. So we're seeing a lot of that. And the ability to invest in those is beyond the reach of almost every individual. But when you look around town, there's people that are looking to move out of the management situation that they're in and retire and do those things. So there's still going to be properties even of the multifamily type for investors, I think.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Anyone
Sure.
else have any questions for Ken?
I've got one, Ginger. What's going on? How are you?
Hey, hi,
Awesome,
Doug.
good.
Hey, Ken. Just curious on the multifamily side of things. I don't want to generalize too much, but typically those type of properties have been rented out by, call it industrial, manufacturing, service industry, et cetera. Obviously down in Clark County, we're seeing some drops in prices just with it being heavy in the service side. Obviously Reno's diversified itself, but just reading throughout the country, I'm gathering that multifamilies, a lot of people tend to think that those will drop in price first and already have based on those type of industries that have unfortunately had to lay people off. Any insight on that in terms of how that's looking in Reno? If there is going to be some sort of reduction in house prices, do you see multifamily potentially being first? I don't want to say in a domino effect, but just any initial thoughts
Sure.
on that on the multifamily side?
To be honest, I don't have much current information on that. It's not something I follow all the time. Let's see. It's something though that we can try to put some things together on. And I think though that the concept of it being the first part to suffer a little bit probably has some truth in it, because the appetite for those are strictly for investors and not for people that are willing to pay more for something than it's quote worth at that time. People are willing to chase a home, shall we say, because it's their dream home, but not very many people chase investments. And so I suspect that it'll be sensitive to that more than anything ordinary residential would have. So I think your background information and the stuff that's happening other places is probably consistent. I think that we are sheltered from that some because we are so underdeveloped when it comes to actual units. We're hundreds and hundreds of bedrooms, if you will, short of where we should be. And that means homes and rental units. It's interesting that so many rental units are what's being built. There are still people that probably won't want to live in those big units, the big complexes. But I think it's going to be more sensitive. I think you're right about that.
And then just as a follow-up, obviously the governor made his decisions on eviction moratoriums, and certainly there's some wiggle room here and there, of how you can evict somebody.
He changed it. He changed
yes.
it some from last time.
He did.
It's a lot tighter now for not just anybody. It's COVID related only now, basically.
Right. With that, even with it being COVID related, sooner or later, it's got to turn back around. Again, just initial thoughts, just curious on the back and forth of the foreclosure process and unfortunate timeline that's bound to hit areas, including our own, I'm assuming.
It could certainly. I mean, it will probably to some extent. What about all the people that are months into owing, and then the other half of that is owners that are perhaps months behind on payments and or had forgiveness of some kind, or maybe just a stall. The only people that have money to print is the government. and the rest of us have to either work for it, and you can't steal enough, so that's not a good idea. So where we are is we have to try to do exactly what you're talking about here, is get out of that situation once it's stabilized enough to start turning the other direction. I think we will see some foreclosures and some short sales perhaps, but not too many people who were in the purchasing area of buying homes and stuff in the last year or two are the ones that are probably most affected by that. And so there's going to be leftover equity in more homes than we've seen before, because we went up in price during the last several years. So I think that instead of coming from a buying period where people bought homes with nothing down and nothing a month back in 2004 and 5 and so on, and built themselves into a mess, that we don't have that going on at all, and we didn't have during this whole recovery. It's all been pretty tight financing, and you got to have a job, and you got to be able to sign papers, and you know, had assets and all those kind of things. So I think we're much stronger than we used to be.
Makes sense. Thanks for the info tonight and the insight.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Anything I can do. All right. I've got a birthday. This is not a birthday party exactly, but a birthday party. My daughter's birthday is today, and I brought a cake up to McQueen High School where she works this morning, and we're going to get together with her brother and family and everything in a little while. So I'm going to bow out and go do a virtual birthday party. How's that?
Awesome. Have fun, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming and talking with us.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.